What's going on, guys? Reisshub back with another video, and in this time I'm going through Kami's games from qualifier day 4 semi-finals where he came third. He only played 5 games, and in 4 of those he was in the top 5. It was actually pretty insane, only having 1 bad game. He ended up coming third, and like I said, he only played 5 games where other people were playing 7, so this is a seriously impressive consistent placement. I live streamed this on Twitch, so if you want to go and watch some more of these live, go and follow me over there on twitch.tv/Reisshub. Hope you guys enjoy this. Catch you later. So interesting, Kami, clearly he wanted to look and go, he was like very interested in getting close to center here, rather than playing like edge, which I'm not surprised about. It's like, most people are either hard edge or hard center, and that you can tell that their plan is like one or the other in this kind of second zones. So again, let's see, third zone's here, so I would like to see him in this area up to the north, but it's going to be difficult to rotate here through here. So I would almost, like, in this zone here, you really don't want to be down in this area, because if like a 4th or 5th zone pulls up this hill, it's really, really difficult to get up there. So I'd definitely like him to stay up on this side, and like, it's not worth going down here in the center of this third, just purely based on this hill alone. Plus, he has crash pads. Oops. He has crash pads, so like from here, he can like crash pad down if he needs to and has a further zone. So in this particular third, like there's no point in going center. So like edge is definitely going to be better in this particular one. Even like over here or down here, that's like maybe a little bit too edge. However, like it's definitely going to be much better than going down there. This is something that I really love doing, and it's really annoying if it happens to you, but you can just grief people's builds. If you have extra crash pads left over, you can just sit and throw them at people's builds. You can see how irritating it is. Obviously, you don't want to be doing that if you waste your own crash pads, but the fact that he has like 4 left over, he can just sit and spam them at this player and just annoy them. Okay, notice, early game. So, look at his materials and everything he has right now. So his mats are good, rotation is really good, heals are good. He probably could have had a better shotgun if he'd maybe spent time upgrading, which I would have kind of liked. But notice how he has all this time, right? Because it's still first zone. There's still a minute left in this first zone. And what he's deciding to do with it, rather than just like hanging around doing nothing, he's already claimed a high ground position here, right? If I zoom out, I'm putting the wrong speed. He's already claimed this high ground spot, right? Now, zone might not come here, right? You can see where he is. He's over here. It's relatively centered in this zone, and he's claiming it super early because he has the zone and because he's already like looted up really quickly here. So he's claimed this. So if he gets second zone around here, he's already way ahead of other people. And this is something you should be doing if you, like, no matter where on the map it is. You know, if you, for example, if you drop maybe Steamy and you get like a first zone that's super north, trying to claim this hill, or if you drop relatively centered, like if you drop in Lazy or in Weeping, and you have like enough time, claiming this kind of early hill here is really good. Just knowing like the high points and like these kind of vantage points that you can take early on if you already have time is just super, super valuable. And obviously drop. So we've seen in particular, remember from the FNCS Invitational, a lot of players were putting a huge amount of emphasis on if they had the opportunity to get a drop, just going for it. Committing mats to doing it because it's guaranteed launchpad. Like in this situation, he doesn't get any weapons that are important. He decides to keep the big over this chat splash, which was interesting. But however, you can see that he was like, as soon as he saw it, going for that because it's a guaranteed launch pad. And like committing stuff to it is a good idea. Obviously, there was no risk either because there was no one in that position. So always make sure you're going for those drops. I like the layering going up. This is actually something I don't like when players do this. Sorry, let me just reset the camera. So this particular angle, you can see exactly why I don't like this, is I would have preferred to seen him go actually above him one layer or diagonally across from him, because in this particular situation when he's like on this what was I gonna say, adjacent, so on to him, you can see Smudge, this dude is sitting in his cone, and if Kami edits this wall at all, he can run straight through and he can just crash pad in. But if he was the layer above him, he'd be much more relaxed. This is something you see a lot of players do. It's kind of set up this angle from them. And also on top of that, if Smudge was still in his box, he can just pickaxe the floor from below from a peanut butter peak really, really easily. So it's like, this isn't a position I typically like too much. See, he's made this edit here, and he has no clue that this player, what's this player got? Like, this guy has attack as well, right? Huge amount of chances that this guy could just run straight into his box here. And this is the whole reason why you see these guys in cones. Like, you have to be so careful about where you position yourself in these kind of stack games because of this. And like, luckily, this dude is, you could see this dude is facing the wrong direction, and as soon as he closed it, he turns around. But if this guy was a psycho, he could just ramp phase straight into his box because it's one shot here. Like, that's a mad sketchy. Pads first moving. Interesting spot to land. So, like, because this is actually a really nice spot for him to land here, because I need to reset the camera again. You can see, like, because he's up on this hill, right? Remember, he has crash pads, and when you're up on a high elevation, crash pads are fantastic just to get you down. Like, he probably use 1 or 2 crash pads to get him down into this next zone. So he crash padded, he launch padded, landed on this dead side of zone here. You can see there's like barely any players here, and he's probably going to try and just take some shots with the P90, maybe even just chill. It depends on like who's close to him. Maybe just storm surge tags, yeah. And then just going to crash pad further down and like get a super free rotate. Going, where's it going? Crash pad. See that? He didn't set up the crash pad very well at all there. Like, he just attempted to throw it at a floor without looking at his surroundings or anything like that. So, like, you need to be, in these stacked endgames in particular, you need to be setting up where you're going to crash pad from. It ended up fine because you just bounced back onto it. But, like, still, like, you have to pre-plan every single crash pad. So now he's got 12 builds left, and he manages to get another 7 kills here, which is pretty nuts. I'm guessing he's going to crash pad into someone's box again. Or just, okay, do that. That works too. And we get server lag. We didn't get a huge amount of materials from that either way. So again, he's going to need to continue to be aggressive. Setting up the crash pad ramp. I like it. See there, that was much better. That was pre-planned. He had time to do that. It's crazy how many players he's actually just cleaning up with his P90. They're just so weak. Great piece control. No, he wasn't overly, I was going to say, overly aggressive. He didn't just run straight out. He needs the mats, but he was taking his time. He's being patient. Something that people really struggle with in the endgame. Beautiful shot. Again, he's getting a little bit more mats every time he gets an elim here. Ooh. Player in balk. Love it. That's why, again, you guys should always be practicing how to replace build pieces with your weapons. It's just so valuable, and even in situations endgame like that. I love that counter where we have Nate here who just ramp phased into his box. Straight away, his immediate instinct was to put up the edit the floor and get straight in. I'm getting a little sketchy now, but he manages to get out clearly. Just going around. Lovely, just taking the time. Ensured he even took a little tick of storm so he could ensure he had a right hand peek because he knows this guy has no mats. Gets the elim. Now it's 1v1. Does the guy have the shockwave launcher? Notices straight away notices that the ground here is awkward, so he puts the ramp out on top to cover his top. So that he's got a full box to fight with, and he's not on some weird flooring level. Again, 4 builds, maybe crash pad to height here. Yep, crash pad to height. I don't know how this guy chokes this. I don't know what's happening right now. I don't know what just happened there. It's a very weird endgame. So immediately, this is the only game he's not been centered of second zone. And you can now see the kind of like the amount of people are in his area. You can see like the majority of them are obviously in the spots that have the POIs like this here. Zoom in. You can always tell where like the hot spots are going to be. It's not really a POI, but obviously there's a lot of buildings and stuff, so there's going to be the most people in here. There's hills here, so as you can see, these guys have rotated, but obviously a lot of these players were sitting on this hill. You can see again up on this hill here. So you can kind of tell where the free rotates would be. I'm kind of surprised there's that many people coming from this side. I'm imagining they'll have rotated up from kind of just generally this south side of the map coming up and coming here. But you can see if Kami gone a little bit north, he would have a really free rotate to come in this side. You can just see how free like this entire side of the zone is here. So this may be his downfall here because there's a lot of players in this area. Again, remember, in previous zones, he was already centered in this at this point. In the 2 previous games, he was already centered here. Sorry, that's what I meant. Storm Surge won't need to worry about it as much. So now he gets a max distance third. So again, if he was already near center or even had gone around the north, like I said earlier, then it could have been a really free rotate in, but this is going to be horrible. He's max distance, and look at the amount of players he has to run through. If he'd come round the top, even just like a little bit more, it would have been super free to go to white line it in here, but instead he's going to have to go through like all these huge amount of players here. And, oh, sorry, what happened there? How's he been beamed? Is he just not careful enough? So he's just maybe a little bit careless here, honestly. Just he's spending way too much time to get this wood that just like is not necessary, and then obviously gets sprayed in the back by hard find. It's never gonna be easy to fight. Straight away, heals immediately. He's creating a huge amount of space for himself to fight from, which is good. Hard finds obviously is not gonna let up very easily here. Hardfine's doing a good job of continually pressuring him. Great cone, good piece control. Ooh, again, and Hardfine's in, and that's it over. So again, this happened because he wasn't in a good position. So like center probably wouldn't have been the right idea because there's too many people. I don't really necessarily always say center or second's a good idea. But because he was nowhere near centered based on his positioning here, he should have continued to go a little bit more north where there was going to be much less players. And he was obviously just harvesting out in the open for no reason. If he'd gone a little bit more north, he could have harvested the wood here. There's plenty of wood on rotate as he could have gone, and it would have been fine. He could have kept moving while he harvested this, but instead decided to harvest out this tiny shed where there was a large amount of players around him, got him beamed, and that was the end of that game. Is it good to be at the center zone during the first? Okay, so early game positioning, right? Let's zone out here for a little bit. This is always something that's interesting, and it really depends. First zone positioning isn't as important, right? But the more stacked the lobbies get, the more like important your positioning is going to be. But fundamentally, like, first zone isn't hugely important because most of the time you're just going to be looting anyway. But let's take the example where we talked about earlier, where he landed it dirty and then he looted up pretty quickly. First zone's still there, so you're trying to get like a position on the hill. That's what's most important. Like, if you have time in your early game and you don't have to rotate far, ensuring once you have like your loot, get like a good high ground spot and just chill in first zone. Then when it comes to second, center is going to be good, right? But the problem is if you go center of second or third zone, you really have to ensure that you like layer yourself well and you get yourself away from other players at the same time. If you go center of second and it's really congested and it's in a POI and there's a bunch of players around you and you go in a low ground layer, like it's going to be really, really difficult for you to be able to fight. But if center of second or third is like a POI, like chances are you're probably not going to want to go in there. And if you do go in there, you're going to want to take like a really high layer so that you're like above all these players. And then when it comes to playing like edge on second, you want to make sure that if you're going to play edge on second, you have to be like a dead side and on a spot that has like the least amount of players. Because if, for example, like the second zone is here, right? If this is second zone and you go and just like set box up here and then third zone ends up all the way down in this bottom left, good luck with that. Like, that's not going to work well at all. So it's like, your positioning on zone, you should always think about where the most players are going to be and like how to work around that. Sometimes that's in your benefit, sometimes that's not. Again, he has enough mats to keep him going. Top 2, he doesn't win this. I think he's just going to get griefed by crash pads. And this is exactly what we talked about earlier, where like, if you have crash pads left, you can just grief people by just throwing them at the builds, just destroys their entire builds. Just complete waste of mats. He wasted 300 mats there because of that. This guy clearly doesn't have a shockwave launcher. Ooh, that was unlucky. Oh, just goes down to a 50-50 at the end, but unfortunately it does not win it. That is a real shame. So like, a lot of Kami's consistency really did come from like his early game stuff. Early game, he set himself up so that he has crash pads and a launch pad. He got into the center of second where he was always away from players. And then in third zone, again, he was getting to a good centered position. If he wasn't in centered, then he was using like his crash pads at that point to get in. He took smart rotates. He barely ever got damage while he was rotating, and like really, really, really clean rotates from him. And like generally, the whole reason he succeeded there was because he set himself up for the end game up until the third zone. Like at the point where it was the third zone, he was already at like his loadout was already good enough to get him into like the top 5, top 10 of every game. So like huge props. That was a fantastic play for him. He pops off in the end game because he just gets so many elims because he knows how to play those end games. So notice also that the majority of his end game was like the majority of the elims he got in the end game were like after kind of the first moving. He wasn't really getting many elims first moving, and he got like 1 or 2 in second, but after that, that's when he really started popping off, you know. Once he'd used the majority of his mats, the majority of his mobility, like to get him further through the zones, so...